Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa called on men to do more to prevent gender-based violence. Well, Tekano, a social justice organization that works at the coalface of gender-based violence in this country, wants the president to lead by example. It says it wants him to secure answers as to why the NPA missed a deadline to appeal a judgment which overturned the rape conviction of Loyiso Coko last month. Joining us to talk about this is the CEO of Tekano Health Equity, Lebohang Ramafoko. Lebo, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you. Well, good morning. I keep saying afternoon, pardon me. Welcome to Newsfeed AM. Let's talk for the benefit of the people who've not been following the story about what happened. It was a reversal of a rape conviction by the acting judge, Tekano, that has yourselves and other activists, to be frank, quite angry. And the NPA, which was supposed to appeal, missed the deadline, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Let's talk more about the case itself then and why you have found that court process to be so offensive and unjust.
Well, firstly, only 25% of rape cases make it through the criminal justice system because women fear the kind of further victimization and violence that they experience when they report cases. Not only through the time they step into a police station, but from their families, the families and the loved ones of those that they are saying that they raped them. So to have a woman who basically goes out and reports a case, especially a case where she asserts, and rightfully so, that while she consented to fondling, to kissing, she made it very clear that she does not consent to penetrative sex. We have spent many years, not only as NGOs, but as a country, to educate the public around what consent is. And rightfully, every sexual act will need consent, and at any point in time, consent can be withdrawn. And in this case, you see a judge or an acting judge, Newzroom, basically take us more than 20 years back by saying when you consent to one sexual act, it means that you have consented to all sexual acts. So the overruling of the rape conviction does not only have dire and negative consequences for the young woman who dared a very, very hostile system to report a rape and get a conviction, but it really sets a very problematic precedent for every other woman who may want to report a case of rape, particularly when they consented even to, I'll go home with you, but I do not want to have sex with you. And if we are basically saying one form of consent is consent for everything, it means that even smiling at a man or having drinks with a man, which are some of the myths and the norms that many, many NGOs have worked hard against dispelling, is now going to say, well, you consented to one thing, you can therefore not say you did not consent to the other act.
You know, all of this reminds me of a conversations that I grew up hearing that you were having on talk shows in the early to late 2000s about how even when consent has been given for, let's say, penetrative sex, right, as a woman, you still have the right to change your mind at any second.
As a man and a woman, you've got every right to change your mind. We also realize that some of the myths that we have about rape is that it is done by a stranger. And why the issue of consent is important is because even with the reported cases, many of these cases happen in the home amongst people who may at some point in time said that they love each other, or even uncles and other caregivers to children. So when a child, for an example, basically agrees to sit on the lap of an uncle, and then that uncle fingers them, if you follow the logic of this case, it will say that consenting to sit on your uncle's lap meant that you consented that anything can be done to your body. It's nonsensical if you think about it that way. It erodes everything that many activists have said about consent. And it is hugely problematic that during 16 days of activism, when activists are out there tiring themselves, some with very little support, to basically speak out about this issue, a country that says this is the age of accountability cannot even hold its own state organ, the NPA, to account about how you missed a deadline to appeal such a misogynistic judgment.
And I appreciate that addition that you made there, because in my framing I had said women, but we know in this country men too get raped. Let's talk about why it is that you want the president in particular to lead this charge to get answers out of the NPA. Some would say, why not just put pressure on the NPA bosses for accountability?
The fight for gender-based violence needs leadership right from the top. The president himself has spoken. He has addressed women who, through the total shutdown, had 24 demands. He made promises at a meeting where more than 800 persons, both men, women, and the queer community, attended to ask for this government to put resources and have a national strategic plan to address gender-based violence. For that reason, even at that consultation, even during the 24 demands, even during total shutdown, a few years ago, before lockdown, we had said that we need leadership from the top, and we need the president to give direction to all state organs, and therefore his responsibility to lead to the top. You cannot then, as a president who has been delegated by all citizens in the country to lead and show direction, as a public servant, then say, when women are saying we are dying, and not only are we dying, when we, 25% only, 25% of women have gone out and said we want to follow the criminal justice system to its conclusion. Even when they have done that, when only 25% of cases are reported, you then end up by not holding the very state organs that are making it so difficult for the other 75% to report cases and not do anything. In any other normal country, like we have also seen in Canada, you would have had a president call everybody to account. But in this country, we know that women are on their own. We know that there is no accountability for many other things, but especially for gender-based violence. So we are saying to the president through our campaign, which we entitled Reabua, that in fact, as women, we are standing up. As women, as queer persons, as all of those who are facing violence, gender-based violence, we are speaking out, and we are asking the president as the public servant number one to call all of the state agencies to account.
And the president, speaking on Women's Day in August, again referenced the fact that the country sits currently with 32 courts that are designated as sexual offences courts in this country. How effective are they?
Well, the courts are effective, and in a sense that they exist. But you need to be speaking to the experiences of women who are dealing with those courts. But also you must remember that judgments like the one that the acting judge Ndukaitobi made are not only affecting what happens at the courts, but they also affect prevention campaigns. So those courts will be rendered ineffective by a message that is being sent that says, you know, you do not have to respect a woman's right to say no at any point in time or to withdraw consent. So while the courts and what the police is doing is crucial, but the message that the courts are sending with this judgment are not even helping prevention mechanisms. And prevention and really dealing with the courts once the offense has happened means they are two sides of the same coin. So we not only need these courts to function, but we also need to make sure that the judgments that we have around these cases that are reported, and as I said, only 25% of them of these cases see themselves through the criminal justice system. You want the messages sent by these courts to be very, very strong around such behavior. It's unacceptable, and you will be punished for it.
And there had been a commitment after the murder of Uyinene Mkhwetyana in a post office in Cape Town that we'd see the establishment of a gender-based violence and femicide council. As things stand, I think as recently as 2 months ago, there were still calls for that to take off. Why hasn't it taken off?
I can only say that there is no political will. And I think I have been saying all along that what will happen, because the majority of voters in South Africa, or registered voters in South Africa, are women, we are going in leading to 2024 to have to ask ourselves very seriously whether we've got a government that cares for women in this country, and what are we going to do with our votes come 2024. I don't think that you can have a party or a government that shows such disdain that will make promises to women and not fulfill those promises. And yes, while we accept that there may be challenges, but the lives of women are at stake. And every effort should be made, even if it means bringing in talent from everywhere. Civil society, there isn't a shortage of leadership, there isn't a shortage of skill. The shortage is of political will, because I guess what has happened is that we have accepted these hollow statements that have been made that are not followed by action. And maybe it is about time that we need to say, what is the next best action that women can take to make sure that this act of gender-based violence and all of these promises that have been hollow, are taken seriously.
Lebohang Ramafoko speaking to us from Cape Town, CEO of Tekano Health Equity. Good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.